Good morning. Oh, that sounds so awesome. Welcome to the Boulder Valley Unitarian Universalist Fellowship. This is our first fully outdoor service. It is the first time we've been in person since March of 2020 as a whole gathered community on Sunday morning with multi-platform on Zoom. So welcome to our Zoom folks as well out there somewhere. Hello, Zoomies. I certainly appreciate your grace and you sharing your frustrations as we have continued to do this COVID dance between our deep yearning to be together and safety and inclusion for everyone. I'm Reverend Lydia Ferrante Roseberry, the minister of this beloved congregation. I'm joined today by Service Associate Karen Griglack and Intern Minister Lisa Moore. Our music director, Tad Koryeth, is here on the piano. We have Jin Lim on violin, and Amy Austin is leading songs. And our AV Tech team, Eric Williams, Deborah Mensch, Don Price, and Cameron Wise. Let's give them a little love because that's the only way we could be here is with everybody figuring out, with those folks in particular, figuring out how to make this work for us. So here we are again, in another pivot of how we do our services. This time, it's been in the direction of gathering in person, and I'm so grateful. Last week, the congregational leadership and I had responded to the change in Boulder County's COVID risk status from high to very high. And when we saw that, we immediately adopted the UUA guidelines to suspend all in-person gatherings, indoors or out, and we pivoted to the very creative drive-in service. For those of you who were here. This Tuesday, this guideline was reviewed by our COVID team. And based on the science and taking in our values of inclusion, we feel comfortable that the risks of offering these multi-age outside worship services, masked and with no congregational singing, are minimal. So here we are. This is one that I hope we will be able to stick to for as long as the weather holds out, and as long as Boulder County doesn't slip into the severe risk category on the COVID Act Now protocols. We're also testing our CO2 levels in the building so we know how many people can safely return there based on science and hard numbers. So fingers crossed we'll be able to continue to meet in a multi-platform way for the foreseeable future. And so, as I mentioned, yes, right? Let's do this. Let's make this happen. But as I mentioned a moment ago, the flurry of Sunday morning activity to get us ready for these services was beautiful and intense. This is our second week doing it. So for much of the last few months, even in Zoom meetings, we've had the same dedicated team. And they share their experience but they also want to share their experience with others and have some time off to enjoy their Sunday services as you have been. So if you're interested in being part of the team, you do not need technical experience. You kind of just, some of the stuff is just an all hands on deck moment. So please see Deborah Mensch. She's our AV team leader extraordinaire. Thank you, Deborah. So we have lots of people on the playground. I don't know if anybody's done a count here. 61 here and 60 on Zoom. All right, we have an even split this morning. For the if you are joining by Zoom today, I do invite you to shift into gallery mode now so that you can see the faces of your other Zoomies while we say our welcome words. And those of you who are here, just look around at all the masked faces around you and see if you can recognize those people you haven't seen in person in the last, year and a half.
You are all welcome here today. In all the beauty of languages, cultures, skin tones, shapes and sizes that come together in your uniqueness, you are welcome here. In all the ways you experience and express your gender, you are welcome here. In the beauty that is who you love and how you love, you are welcome here. Whether you are joining us on Zoom, in an old jalopy, or the latest electric vehicle, or in your chairs on the wood chips, you are welcome here. Christian, pagan, humanist, Jew, Buddhist, mystic, Muslim, Unitarian, Universalist. With all of the traditions that inform your spiritual life, you are welcome here today. No matter how long you are away or how soon you will return, you are welcome here. Whether you come with laughter in your heart or tears, you are welcome here. You are invited to join us with an open mind, a loving heart, and willing hands. We welcome you here today. As you use, we acknowledge that our community is located on the lands once stewarded by the Arapaho, Ute, Lakota, Cheyenne, and Cheyenne people. This congregation honors Indigenous legacy and respects the enduring relationship that exists between Indigenous peoples and their traditional homelands through our connections with Right Relationship Boulder. We also acknowledge that we live in a time when Black, Indigenous, and other peoples of color and Hispanic peoples are devalued, violated, and killed because of systemic racism. Boulder Valley commits itself to becoming anti-racist and defeat systemic racism by taking actions to dismantle racism in society, taking guidance from and while honoring the lived experience of those who identify as people of color, and developing personal relationships between cultures.
If you are new here, we're glad you found us. And we hope that no matter where you are right now, you can experience the warmth and the love of this congregation. Each Sunday is different here, so please come back a few times to really get to know us. If you want to get better connected, please visit our website at bvuuf.org. If you are on Zoom, you can see the chat window for the link to our first-time visitors page, or email your information to our office manager, Carol Pranchke, and her email address will go into the chat as well. It's officemanager@bvuuf.org. Finally, if there are any visitors on Zoom who would like to introduce themselves, just say your name in the chat and say hello. And if there's any newcomers here, you can raise your hand and say hi if you'd like to be greeted, and I hope I get to meet you following the service. Hello, welcome. Glad you're here. You've come on a very auspicious Sunday. Oh, good. Good. We always love to know who is among us. So, and following the service, we'll have some announcements, virtual coffee hour, and a time for those of you who are here to socialize together. If you are joining us via Zoom, I invite you now to light your own chalices as Karen lights the fellowship chalice. So we know where the other chalices are on Zoom. Please write in the chat, chalice lit in, and then the name of your town. We light this chalice for the warmth of love, the light of truth, and the energy of action. So beautiful to hear us saying that together again. I'd forgotten about that part. It's quite something, I will say, to be here, seeing us all live. And I now invite you to let the sound of the second bowl draw you deeper into the present moment and the company of this gathered community. Even more? All right, I'm going to give it a big one. How's that for you?
Gathering in Our Own Spaces by Jeff May. Maybe. Really, maybe. Come, gather, not into a common space, sharing a physical closeness that we long for, precluded by wise choice, but come gather into this common time and a common space. We need to be together. We yearn for connection. We hunger for the familiar faces of friends, the sound of shared voices, proclaiming who we are, where we are going, and that which resonates with our hopes, our dreams, and our values. Come, gather. We are here in this space made of all spaces, and we share our becoming in this moment.
A unique way. I will be singing one of our hymns, Soon the Day Will Arrive, and you're invited to either listen, sing in your minds, or hum along so that we can decrease the amount of aerosols that we are putting out into the air. Thank you. Soon the day will arrive when we will be together, and no longer will we live in fear. And the children will smile without wondering whether on that day thunder clouds will appear. Wait and see what a world there can be if we share, if we care, you and me. Wait and see what a world there can be if we share, if we care, you and me. Some have dreamed, some have died to make a bright tomorrow, and our vision remains in our hearts. Now the torch must be passed without hope, not in sorrow, and a promise to make a new start. Wait and see what a world there can be if we share, if we care, you and me. Wait and see what a world there can be if we share, if we care, you and me.
The reading is called Beginners by Denise Levertov, dedicated to the memory of Karen Silkwood and Elliot Grella. From too much love of living, hope and desire set free, even the weariest river winds somewhere to the sea.
But we have only begun to love the earth. We have only begun to imagine the fullness of life.
So how could we tire of hope? So much is in bud. How can desire fail? We have only begun to imagine justice and mercy, only begun to envision how it might be, not to live as siblings with beast and flower, or how it might be to live as siblings with beast and flower, not as oppressors.
Surely our river cannot already be hastening into the sea of non-being.
Surely it cannot drag in the silt all that is innocent. Not yet. Not yet. There is too much broken that must be mended. Too much hurt we have done to each other that cannot yet be forgiven.
We have only begun to know the power that is in us if we would join our solitudes in the communion of struggle. So much is unfolding that must complete its gesture. So much is in bud.
A few weeks ago, Larry Laverdure shared, right there, Larry, shared parts of a New York Times opinion by Jamil Bowie. Ostensibly, this article was about the topic of the day, the ideological war between the vaxxed and the anti-vaxxers. But the article was about so much more than that. Bowie ends his piece with these words: "When you structure a society so that every person must be an island, you cannot then blame people when inevitably they act as if they are. If we want a country that takes solidarity seriously, we actually have to build one. Do we live in a society where every person must be an island to survive? I believe that the opposite is actually true, and the continual grasping to the myth of rugged individualism, either consciously or unconsciously, could actually lead to our demise. Philosopher Charles Eisenstein calls this the story of separation. We've defined ourselves and each other as discrete objects, literally objects, separate from each other and from the world around us. For Eisenstein, this is not caused by human nature, but actually by human nature denied. That is, that we know in our bones that we are profoundly interconnected, but have been living with an illusion brought on by technology and culture that would separate us from this reality. The American geographer and historian Jared Diamond looks at a critical moment in human development that he says shifted our culture dramatically. The adoption of agriculture some 10,000 years ago. A cascade of changes followed that technological advancement. Writing, math, calendars, division of labor, wars of conquest, private property and its accumulation, money, epidemics, famine, slavery, and so on. Diamond goes so far as to call agriculture the worst mistake in the history of the human race. He is also one of many authorities to point out that early farmers, compared to the hunter-gatherers, were smaller and less well-nourished, suffered from more serious diseases, and died on the average at a younger age than hunter-gatherers that they replaced. Nor did they lead any lives that were easier, which is something that each technological advancement promises, but doesn't deliver very often. Ethnographic studies of isolated Stone Age hunter-gatherers and pre-modern agriculturalists suggest that these people that we might call primitive, far from being driven by the anxieties that we may feel, live lives of relative leisure and relative affluence. The oft-cited example is the Kung of the Kalahari Desert in South Africa, who were studied by the anthropologist Richard Lee. He followed them around for 4 weeks, kept a log of all their activities, and calculated an average work week of approximately 20 hours spent on subsistence activities. This figure was confirmed by subsequent studies by Lee and other researchers. So in one of the harshest climates in the world, the Kung have enjoyed a relatively leisurely life and actually high nutritional intake. The story of separation, which for Eisenstein is coupled with how technology has been developed to manage and control our lives, or to give us a sense that we are managing and controlling our lives. This story, this separation, breeds hierarchy, domination, scarcity thinking, and ego addictions. It's woven into our system of aggressive capitalism, which of course we know has its roots in a history of enslaving Africans. All along, however, there has been another story, a deeper truth, contradictory to the story of separation. It's the story that's been whispered by the saints and the mystics and the poets. And it's now even shared by the scientific community. It is the story of interbeing. It is the story of the profound interconnection in all of creation. Thich Nhat Hanh coined the term interbeing to describe the Buddhist concept of dependent origination. Nothing arises all by itself. Everything is completely interwoven. In his words, if you are a poet, you will see clearly that there is a cloud floating in this sheet of paper. Without the cloud, there would be no rain. Without rain, the trees cannot grow. Without the trees, we cannot make paper. The cloud is essential for paper to exist. If the cloud is not there, the sheet of paper cannot be there either. So we can say that the cloud and the paper inter-are. I would add that the cloud and the paper maker also inter-are. Sufi mystic Jalal al-Din Muhammad Rumi succinctly wrote, "You are not a drop in the ocean, you are the ocean in a drop." Now, with the current situation we find ourselves in a pandemic that's going on and on and on, and with the climate crisis staring us in the face, we have never before experienced a time when it's been more abundantly evident that we inter-are. The myth of our separation that pits up us against one another and creation in competitive and violent ways must be destroyed. Now, Eisenstein says that part isn't going to be very pretty. I'll talk about that maybe another Sunday. I don't want to ruin your day. But what must happen is we must learn to live in a heart-centered fashion, connecting to the deeper truths of the mystery of our very existence. As the myth of separation falls away, more becomes available to us, more of what we really want. Eisenstein calls this the more beautiful world that our hearts know is possible. He asserts our hearts know that another way is possible because we become aware of it in little moments, even now, in the gaps in the rush and press of modern life. Those moments come to us when we might be alone in nature, or with a baby, or making love, or playing with children, caring for a dying person, making music just to make music, or making beauty and art just to make art. At such times, a simple and easy joy shows us the futility of the vast, life-consuming program of management and control that we've been so indoctrinated with. Now, recently I visited one of our elders who is nearing the end of her life. She's doing a lot of life review with me, just sharing stories as they pop up. The other day, she shared with me a moment of transformation for her. When she was in college, a college professor asked them to write about their moment of infinity. And clear as day, she was able to describe to me when she was about 10 years old in the boarding school that she attended, and how one evening she kind of snuck out after dinner and went into the barn and was just sitting quietly. And she looked out the window and she saw the stars on this clear, dark night. And everything changed for her. She said she didn't even have the words to explain it, even now, probably 90 years later, maybe 85 years later from when it happened. But she later became an English teacher. And as an English teacher, every year she had her high school students also write about their moment of infinity. For years and years and years, there was this gathering of people to pay attention to those moments in our lives because they teach us a different truth, a truth that's contradictory to how many of us lead our day-to-day lives. These moments, they can't be scripted, they aren't on my calendar, and they're never a to-do that I check off. Because I have to tell you, when I was with her, hearing her story, I too was having one of those moments. Those beautiful moments where I knew that nothing else mattered in that moment, and that our interconnection was so profound. These moments don't respond to my manipulative efforts at efficiency. They show up when I've put my iPhone away and when I've forgotten what's next on my calendar. I tried, there's that striving again. My hope for my sabbatical was that I would have a lot of these moments, and I did. So I'm very grateful for that. They are moments of noticing and presence. And in those spaces, I become profoundly aware of this interconnection. I tear up the story of separation because I feel it in my bones and in my heart. Eisenstein writes that these moments slip away so easily that we can hardly believe it could be the foundation of life. He asks, what error then, what delusion has led us to accept the lesser lives and the lesser world we find ourselves in today? What has rendered us to feel helpless, to resist the ugliness, pollution, injustice, and downright horror that has risen to engulf the planet in the last few centuries? What calamity has so resigned us to it that we actually call this the human condition? These moments of love, freedom, serenity, and play. What power has made us believe that these are respites from real life? In the midst of the enormity of these times, our faith calls us to reclaim that story, that reality of our interbeing, and all of the beautiful moments that our hearts know is possible. It's asking us to deepen our own practices to align us with a knowing that lies beneath the surface of our myths of separation and the ensuing anxiety. These simple moments of ordinary and profound beauty are actually our birthrights. They should not be moments that happen once every 80 years or so. Let me note that this beauty that our hearts know is possible, that's anchored in love, serenity, and connection, does not require anyone to be subservient to anyone else. There is no domination in that, only presence. And that the more we notice and cultivate them and acknowledge them and all those things that truly make our hearts sing, the more we heal our world. Because when we notice them, we are bringing that more into being. I have a dear friend who said instead of a gratitude journal, she's now starting a journal of these moments so she can just keep them fresh and notice them more and more. We must proclaim boldly that what we do matters because it is connected to everything else. And with that wisdom guiding us, we acknowledge that each of us has a part to play in the restoration of the planet and the creation of human dignity for all. May it be so.
The next hymn that I'll sing for you is "'Tis a Gift to Be Simple." And even though I'm sure you know many of these words, sing them lovely in your head or hum them beautifully as we share this music together. "'Tis a gift to be simple, 'tis a gift to be free, 'tis a gift to come down where we might be. And when we find ourselves in the place just right, 'twill be in the valley of love and delight. When true simplicity turn, turn will be a delight till by turning, turning we come round right. Tis a gift to be simple, tis a gift to be free, tis a gift to come down where we ought to be. And when we find ourselves in the place just right, 'twill be in the valley of love and delight. When true simplicity is gained, to bow and to bend, we shan't be ashamed to turn, turn will be a delight, till by turning, turning we come round right.
Each week, we remind ourselves of the abundance of our lives and this community by giving half of our plate away to those organizations that share our values. This week, we're sharing our plate with Convoy of Hope. They are a nonprofit that partners with local organizations, such as those who need Hurricane Ida relief, to feed the world through children's feeding initiatives, community outreach, and disaster response. If you were on Zoom this morning, the text to donate number will be on your screen. If you are in person today, look for our hospitality folks moving around, look over on the wall, and that phone number is available to you. If you are in person today and you are looking for an offering plate for a cash donation, it is over on the stump in the corner, and feel free to go over to it during the musical reflection. As our musical reflection begins, we invite you to reflect upon the meaningful moments that this summer brought you. What is one simple thing that brings beauty or pleasure to your life? If you're on Zoom, please feel free to share it in the chat.
for the work of the fellowship and the work of Convoy of Hope, which is helping with Hurricane Ida relief up and down the East Coast. We dedicate our efforts and our offerings.
I now invite us into our time of community connection and sacred sharing. If you're on Zoom and you'd like to share a joy or concern, please type into the chat window, sending it to everyone, and let us know briefly what is on your heart today, and I will share it out loud. If you'd like us to be able to follow up with you, please include your full name and where you live in your chat. And Karen will put a sacred stone in the water on your behalf. And we're going to do those actually second. So if you are here in person, please come forward and put a stone in and share briefly. Lydia has the mic. Dear ones, we notice the interconnections between us all, the losses of people who we love, even though we might not agree with, and we share the pain and suffering from that. We acknowledge the joy and share also in the things that bring us closer together along with sorrow, sharing of things like applesauce and harvests, friendships, being together, feeling the wind blow through us and around us. May we all have joy in our hearts to carry us through in the moments of longing and sorrow. May we all know love and share it freely as the air we breathe. Amen, and blessed be.
The wind has extinguished our chalice. For just another sign of interbeing, right? So we will symbolically extinguish this chalice, but not the warmth of love, the light of truth, or the energy of action. These we carry in our hearts until we meet again. Beloveds, we have come together feeling the connection of one another's presence, here in person and on Zoom. Let us go forth and serve in love with this feeling, this knowing in our bones. We are all connected. Blessed be. Amen. We did it. That's my first announcement. I have a couple other announcements, and then we'll frolic or something. I don't know. I am offering a class for it'll be the next 3 weeks in person, called A Call to Faith in Turbulent Times, on Thursday afternoon. And it will begin in person in the evening on Zoom on October 7th. So you can still sign up. And those of you who do it in person can just hop onto Zoom if you miss any classes. So look in Connections Weekly for that, and I'll send out another reminder this week. Children's programming has started this week, and the kids actually left the playground to go to their classes, so that's already pretty darn impressive. And coming of age also for our adolescent, our folks who are turning into youth, and it starts this evening as well. So we really are off to a full season of programming. And I just want to clarify our COVID responsibilities for now. We will be outside as long as the weather holds, and as long as it works, it feels accessible to folks. We will be doing CO2 testing in the sanctuary, which will give us a sense of how many people can come on a Sunday within the zone of safety for COVID. And the CO2 testing will also be indoors for the choir, so we can see if the choir can sing indoors. We might need to do some quick pivots, like if it's rain or sleet or hail. So if that happens, we will pivot to everyone on Zoom, and we will hopefully be in the sanctuary with a 2 weeks notice. So we can't do a quick pivot and start sanctuary services. So my hope is that we can keep this up for a very long time. Blessed be. We did it.